In a world full of Don Lemons, be a Nick Shirley. This amazing young man has impressed me to no end. And today he just testified in front of the House Oversight Committee on the billions of dollars of fraud that he exposed all on his own. Independent YouTube journalists. Sound familiar? Quite frankly, there's a lot of us out there, but there's only one Professor Nez. I'm glad you're here because me and Melania, we watch him all the time. Thank you, Mr. President. I love you. Wait till you hear what Nick Shirley just said. And I've also got some clips of other Minnesota officials as well as a former police officer. It's going to blow your mind. I've got news on the Clinton subpoena defiance. Holy macadamian nut. You don't want to miss that. And a whole lot more. But man, when you've got a Don Lemon who is a hack, talentless, no good, derelict, former fired, how do you get fired from CNN? Hack journalist who invades churches and then has the audacity after he invades said church to call them white supremacists versus this impressive, young, honest, decent character, full of character and integrity, young man. There's just no comparison. Watch.
Shirley, you're recognized for your opening statement.
Awesome. I'm here today to speak on behalf of all hardworking, law-abiding, tax-paying citizens here inside of the United States. I've helped bring to light widespread fraud that's happening inside our nation, and we the people have had enough of our hard-earned money going towards fraudsters as if it's no big deal. As I speak here, I want to ask everyone a question. How much do we trust when we pay our taxes it's going to benefit our nation? People erupted during the Boston Tea Party over just a few percentages as they believe they were being taxed without representation. Nowadays, we have the representation, but do we trust our representatives? My name is Nick Shirley, and I made a 41-minute video that I posted on platforms like X and YouTube. My video received over 100 million views, and it created instant change within our government. As the federal government launched investigations in departments such as Health and Human Services froze over $185 million in childcare funding until businesses can prove they are legitimate businesses. I actually became aware of the fraud that was happening in Minnesota in June of 2025 as I was there for a separate video in Minnesota and started reaching out to me, asking me if I was making a video on the fraud. I said, well, what fraud? And this lady, she was a real estate agent, and she says, well, I'm having a hard time selling my properties because people are curious about these assisted livings that are popping up next door to some of the houses that we're buying or the home health care clinics that are popping up, and we don't know who's next to these houses that we're trying to sell. And I said, well, I'm not going to come and make a video if I don't have any proof. So therefore, I left Minnesota, and I continued to look for fraud in the best way I could. And as I was getting my own information, a man by the name of David reached out to me, and he said, hey, I have been investigating this fraud for years now. I have been driving by these child care centers. I've never seen a single child, and I have received information from the state of Minnesota as to how much money these places are receiving. I said, great, let me come to Minnesota and we'll make this video about potential fraud that was taking place inside of Minnesota. We go to a daycare, and I'm instantly surprised by what we see. We arrived, and it was an industrialized building, and there was 2 daycares registered at that building. And the first thing I noticed is all the windows are blacked out, and there's no footprints in the snow of any children. There's no playgrounds or anything that would make it look like it's a child care. But above me, a sign read, open 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. But there was nobody there. The doorbell did not even work. And then we continued to go to other daycares, and we noticed the same pattern. No children, blacked out windows, and one daycare, a learning center, spelled Quality Learning Center instead of Quality Learning Center.
You know, they tried to find all this dirt on Nick Shirley and, try to smear him. You got these ridiculous ghetto Crockett's and just absolutely abysmal hypocrites. The guy doesn't drink. He doesn't do drugs. He follows his own faith. I believe he's a Christian. I'm not sure if he's Catholic or Christian. I'm not sure. But just a decent young man, stays out of trouble, just asking questions, just looking for the truth. I'm so impressed. I love it. There's hope for my kids. I mean, the whole reason I'm doing this channel, Making Common Sense Go Viral, is so that I want my kids to wake up in an America that makes sense, an America that I grew up in, that didn't have these insane DEI woke ideologies pervasive in every facet of life. Anyway, I digress. Here's former Minnesota police officer. I mean, give a thumbs up for Nick Shirley and let me know what you think. He watches our show. Let him know what you think in the comments. Former Minnesota police officer Scott Dexter on the Minnesota daycares that defrauded Minnesotans on Tim Walz's watch.
Mr. Dexter, could have something been done about this earlier?
Yes. As I stated in my opening testimony, in the years that I worked there, we identified how fraud was occurring, the loopholes that existed, and
what were some of the warning signs, Mr. Dexter?
Well, the fact that part of our job was to go and collect attendance records. We would find attendance records that were either incomplete, non-existent. Obviously, there were times we found them to be fabricated because they were given to us way later, and the same with billing records. They were allowed 30 days after the end of the billing period to submit billing records, so they were not immediately available to us, and it kind of allowed overpayments or double payments to be overlooked. The highest funded centers were reviewed first, and many of those centers were referred to us through the public tip line or by licensing inspectors who observed activity inconsistent with a legitimate daycare operation. What we found was deeply concerning. Many of these centers operated out of commercial spaces with windows totally covered, no visible play areas, and very few children ever present. Through surveillance, data collection, and review of attendance and billing records, we repeatedly documented patterns of overbilling, non-existent attendance, and in some cases, children being signed in for hours they were never actually at the center.
Gee, I wonder if they willfully ignored those warning signs. Somebody brought up an excellent point. You know, there's this sort of hoopla that's been made over the Somalian kind of average IQ that's been recorded around like 60 or even less or something like that. And I can't remember who came up with this, but somebody was talking about how is it possible that you have this community that could defraud the American government, the American taxpayer, come up with this elaborate fraud scheme with such a low IQ? It's impossible in some regards. And if you look at it critically, you have to say, well, yeah, that is kind of interesting. How did they, because we're not talking hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands, even millions. We're talking billions with a B. So this former police officer, Mr. Dexter, brings up an interesting point. I would venture to say that not only did Tampon Tim facilitate this, know about this, aware of this, willfully ignored this, but probably perpetuated it and profited off it. And I have zero doubts that mentally Ilhan had a lot to do with it as well.
Correct.
What makes you think that?
Well, now you're seeing, since I've posted that video, lots of other people have started to go to other locations, for instance, in Ohio or in Maine or in California. They're also seeing the similar fraud take place in other daycares, for instance, in a lot of other locations.
Yeah, I have a particular interest in California, being from that state, and we know that there's been a lot of fraud. There was $32.6 billion that's been confirmed in unemployment insurance fraud. There's 1.2 million fraudulent community college applications. Have you gotten any sense, or have you seen any signs there that sort of are similar to what aroused your suspicions in Minnesota?
Yeah, and fraud in California might be worse than the fraud in Minnesota.
What makes you say that?
Well, $24 billion went missing for homelessness. They've been trying to build this train for years, yet there's hardly anything to prove for that. Fires.
Yeah, those are good points. So you look at let's run through a couple of those because I mentioned the areas where we have confirmed fraud, but then you also have these areas where you have so much spending, and then we look at what results from that spending, and there's nothing. So $24 billion in homelessness, and yet the homeless population went up. And a state audit found that they couldn't even figure out where the money went or what the outcomes linked to that spending were. Is that something that is kind of a red flag for you?
Yeah, it's a major red flag, and you don't even have to be smart to be able to know that that's a red flag.
Well, unfortunately, our state legislators haven't managed to figure that out, or at least the governor hasn't. So what are you saying about him?
They're not smart. No, but yeah, I mean, it's so obvious, and that's what we saw in Minnesota is how complicit the government has been in enabling this fraud to happen. Quality Learning Center had over 90 violations, yet they continue to give that daycare $1.9 million.
Please, Nick Shirley, come to California, come to my home state. I'm trying to do everything I can to expose Newsom, but I would love it if you could be on the ground, and then you're invited on my show anytime you want to elucidate all of your findings, because as President Trump said, I can only imagine that California is 100 times worse. We have the largest, quickest budget deficit, the quickest migration out of our state. We're number one in homelessness. He spent billions, 24 billion and counting. A lot of people call it the industrial homelessness complex, which he's profiting from. His wife is profiting from. By the way, much like Kamala, who somehow can afford a $10 million beach home in Malibu, Gavin Newsom, whose salary is based on government standards, somehow bought this, kind of walled-in mansion over $9 million himself in Northern California. I can't remember exactly where it is, but it's all fraud. This is why they fight so hard to protect criminals and fight ICE and fight people like Nick Shirley. Instead of giving this guy the Pulitzer, instead of giving this guy funding, he should be getting government subsidies. If anybody should be getting government subsidies, it's Nick Shirley. He should be getting subsidized by private ventures as well, private investors. This is all about the truth and uncovering the lies, the deceit, the billions of dollars that the American taxpayer is being defrauded by. I love the example of the Boston Tea Party. We have representatives. They didn't have representatives. They got taxation without representation. We have representation, but they are polluted representation, dipped in the muck of ceaseless corruption and fraud. God bless you, Nick Shirley. And while all this is going on, I want to share this quick clip, and then I'm going to talk about the Clintons. Here is Tampon Tim on the gates of his home, behind the gates, continuing to foment and encourage and advocate people from behind his gated home to continue protesting and cause, quote, good trouble. Get a load of this.
People identifying, and there's a lot of people saying, okay, I was sleeping on Minnesota. And I think what you've done and what our neighbors are going through to see this, and I oftentimes told this story, I served on the China Commission in Congress, ironically enough as co-chair with Marco Rubio. We used to bring in Chinese political prisoners, and we would ask them, when we speak up and call out your government, is it bad? And they said, well, in the short run it's bad because they torture us. But if you don't speak up, they will torture us and forget about us. And the idea is right now is we have to be speaking up. We have to call it out. You are doing everything, and our neighbors are doing everything. And I can't stress enough on this. We're winning it because we're doing it with Minnesota grit, Minnesota humor, Minnesota decency. Oftentimes talk about this, and I know people are discussing this a lot. I spent a lot of time with John Lewis on nonviolent resistance. The resistance matters. We're not telling people to be silent, but we're not telling people to go out and cause problems. We're going to cause good trouble.
It's just so repulsive. Imagine cheering on the very guy who's stealing from you, the very guy who's lying to you, who's stolen billions of dollars while you work and slave away. You've got all these fraudulent businesses, all these illegal migrants absolutely desecrating your land, desecrating your city, desecrating your communities. And you know what? We're doing it with Minnesota grit. We're doing it with Minnesota decency. Minnesota, excuse me? I beg your pardon? Minnesota decency? You tried to run over an ICE agent. You have been advocating, fomenting, and stoking the fires, telling these people, surrounding hard-working law enforcement officers who are simply doing their job, carrying out a task. They don't make the laws. They don't write the laws. They enforce the laws. They're being attacked. People are ramming them with their vehicles, treating them like they're some kind of like a third world criminal. These are law enforcement officers doing their job. You are repulsive, and I can't wait for you to be behind bars. Well, here's a good segue. Speaking of maybe perhaps being behind bars, check this out. The House Oversight Committee just voted to hold President Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton in contempt of Congress after they refused a lawfully served subpoena. Nobody is above the law, right? Check this out.
On the Hillary R. Clinton contempt report. Play. Have all members been recorded who wish to be recorded? Does any member wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the clerk will close the vote and report the vote total.
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, the ayes are 28, the nays are 15, with 1 voting present.
The ayes have it. Pursuant to this vote, the committee hereby favorably reports and adopts this report recommending that the House of Representatives find Hillary R. Clinton in contempt of Congress for refusal to comply with a subpoena duly issued by this committee. We will move the report to the full House. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
I guess we're going to find out now. So you can see there's going to be a full vote now. It's got to go to the Senate as well, and it's going to go through a couple of loopholes. But if they arrested Navarro and they arrested Steve Bannon, why can't they arrest Hillary and Bill for doing the same exact thing? By the way, this would be the first time in American history that a former U.S. president and a former Secretary of State have not only defied a subpoena, but also have been held in contempt. I can't wait to get your thoughts on all of this. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Please tap that thumbs up. It helps out our cause. Even if you're watching on TV, you can do it with your remote. Thank you so much. Check out these videos coming up. You missed this video, go click on this one next. Tap my face right here to subscribe and follow. It doesn't cost you a thing. And as always, may God bless you and may God bless the USA and all who defend her. I'll see you soon.